Welcome to Passport to Sleep, a calming journey through real places and dreamy escapes. Let's begin tonight's story. The car went south from Florence, slipping away from the bustle of the city into a landscape that feels like it belongs to another world, or maybe another time altogether. The hills roll outward in slow, sun-warmed waves, stitched with vineyards and olive groves, their colours soft and sun-bleached, gold, sage, ochre, the green of cypress trees so dark it almost seems black against the haze of the midday sky. Stone farmhouses, their walls weathered to a gentle cream by centuries of sun and rain, perch on the hilltops like ancient sentinels. The road narrows as we climb higher, curving past fields where wheat stubble catches the light in brilliant flashes, and where lone umbrella pines throw perfect patches of shade onto the pale earth. Every bend reveals a new postcard come to life, a line of cypress trees leading to a hidden villa, a crumbling Etruscan wall draped in ivy, a cluster of sheep grazing so quietly they seem painted onto the hillside. The heart of Valdorcia opens before us, a UNESCO World Heritage landscape celebrated for its astonishing harmony between human cultivation and natural beauty. A valley so perfect that Renaissance painters once tried to capture it, and poets declared it a glimpse of paradise. It is not a place you simply pass through. It is a place that slows you down, draws the breath deeper into your chest, folds time around you until the rest of the world feels very far away. We arrived just past midday at our home for the next few days, a small agriturismo tucked along a cypress-lined drive outside the town of Pienza. The farmhouse is built of thick stone, its shutters a faded sage green, its roof patched with terracotta tiles more than a century old. Wild rosemary spills from the low stone walls, its scent sharp and sweet under the heavy warmth of the sun. Bees drift lazily from lavender bush to lavender bush, their hum folding into the hush of the afternoon. Inside, the air is cool and smells faintly of lemon oil and old wood. Our room is simple and perfect. A wrought iron bed piled with crisp white linens, a small window that opens onto a view of rolling fields, stitched with olive trees and vines. Somewhere far off, a bell tolls from a distant church, the sound slow and heavy, vibrating through the stones. We leave our bags barely touched and step back outside, drawn by the pull of the light and the slow, golden promise of the afternoon. The road into Pienza curves gently uphill. The town appears like a dream, a small crown of warm stone set against the vast blue sky, its narrow streets unfurling from the elegant central square. Pienza is not just another medieval hill town, it was deliberately remade in the 15th century by Pope Pius II, who envisioned it as the ideal city of the Renaissance, a place where humanism, order and beauty could live side by side with the natural rhythms of the countryside. With the help of architect Bernardo Rossellino, he transformed his birthplace into a jewel of balanced proportion, where every building seems to lean toward the sun and every street opens onto a vista more breathtaking than the last. We enter through the old gate, the stones still bearing the marks of cartwheels worn into them over 500 years. The town breathes slowly around us, shutters swing lazily in the breeze, cats doze in the narrow alleys. The scent of baking bread, ripe figs, and sharp pecorino cheese spills from every doorway. The streets are named like poems: Via dell'Amore, the street of love, and Via del Bacio, the street of the kiss. They twist and turn, narrow, and then widen suddenly into small squares where cafes spill their tables under wide white umbrellas. We wander without a map, letting the town unfold itself around us like a story written slowly, with careful hands. The Piazza Pio II sits at the heart of Pienza, its stones warmed to gold by the afternoon sun. On one side stands the Duomo, the Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta, its facade a masterpiece of Renaissance symmetry, pale stone carved with delicate arches and crowned with a simple triangular pediment. We step inside, and the air cools instantly, thick with the scent of old incense and damp stone. The cathedral is filled with light, not the harsh light of grand cathedrals elsewhere, but a soft, dappled illumination that filters through high-arched windows onto the simple, soaring space within. Frescoes by artists of the Sienese school still adorn the walls, their colours faded but alive, whispering stories of saints and miracles to anyone who cares to listen. Outside again, the bells ring once more, low and deep, and the sound seems to settle into the very stones of the town. We buy a wedge of pecorino di Pienza from a small shop where wheels of cheese are stacked like golden suns behind a counter of thick glass. Pecorino has been made here for centuries, the flavour shaped by the herbs and grasses of the Val d'Orcia hills, sharper and saltier than the cheeses of the north. The shopkeeper wraps our slice in brown paper with a practiced flick of her wrist and wishes us a good afternoon with a nod and a smile. We eat the cheese in the shade of a fig tree, its leaves casting dancing shadows onto the worn stones at our feet. The pecorino crumbles along the edges but melts against the tongue, rich and earthy, tasting of sun and hillside and the slow patience of sheep and seasons. Later, we follow a narrow lane that spills out onto the Passeggiata Panoramica, the panoramic walk that wraps along the edge of Pienza like a slow, unfolding ribbon of light. The view stretches forever. The valley lies below us in slow, undulating waves, stitched with wheat fields and vineyards, broken only by the cypress trees marching toward hidden farmhouses, their lines so perfect it seems no hand but nature could have placed them. Far off, the twin humps of Monte Amiata, the sleeping volcano that anchors southern Tuscany, loom blue against the horizon. The late afternoon sun turns everything softer, brushing gold onto the fields, throwing long, lazy shadows across the folds of the hills. We sit on a low stone wall and simply watch. The only sounds are the soft rustle of olive leaves, the distant bark of a dog somewhere deep in the valley, the hum of bees weaving drunkenly through the lavender. Time folds itself into the folds of the land. As the sun sinks lower, we return to the agriturismo, where the golden light turns the stones to fire. The owner, a smiling woman with hands strong from years of tending vines and pressing olives, invites us to join the evening meal, a simple feast made mostly from the farm's own harvest. We eat outdoors under a pergola, heavy with grapevines, the table long and rough and scattered with small votive candles that tremble in the breeze. The meal arrives in slow, generous waves, first thick slices of bruschetta, grilled over open flame and rubbed with garlic and the farm's green, peppery olive oil, each bite crackling and rich. Then bowls of pici pasta, the thick hand-rolled noodles native to this part of Tuscany, dressed simply with crushed tomatoes, fresh basil, and a dusting of pecorino. A platter of Tuscany's pork, the prized ancient breed of black and white striped pigs, raised here for millennia, slow roasted with rosemary and fennel until the meat falls apart at the lightest touch of a fork. Small dishes of roasted vegetables, eggplant, zucchini, peppers, slick with oil and blistered from the heat of the oven. A bottle of Brunello di Montalcino is opened with a slow flourish, the wine dark and heavy with the scent of cherries, tobacco, and earth. We eat until the plates are wiped clean with torn pieces of bread. We laugh under the vines, sip the dark wine slowly, watch the stars gather like spilled sugar across the ink-dark sky. For dessert there is panna cotta, barely sweet, trembling with the barest touch of a spoon, drizzled with golden honey harvested from the farm's own bees. The air is cool now, carrying the scents of rosemary and warm stone. The cicadas sing their endless song in the fields beyond. When we finally rise from the table, the night folds around us, soft, fragrant, endless. The lights of Pienza glimmer faintly on the hill beyond, a small crown of gold set against the dark. The hills stretch away into the darkness, slow and sure, carrying the weight of all the years that have passed and all the years still to come. We walk slowly back toward the farmhouse, the gravel crunching under our feet, the stars spinning slowly overhead. And Tuscany breathes around us as warm and patient, infinite and close, holding the memory of the day like a prayer whispered into the soft folds of the hills. Morning rises gently over the Val d'Orcia. The light filters in through our window in slow, golden layers, brushing the stone floor and the edge of the white linen sheets. Outside, the hills are still half lost in mist, their folds soft and secretive, the cypress trees standing in quiet rows like watchmen waiting for the sun. Somewhere nearby, a rooster calls once and then again. The bees are already at work in the lavender bushes below the terrace, their hum steady and calm, as if stitched into the rhythm of the land itself. We dress slowly, the air still cool from the night, and step out into the courtyard just as the smell of baking bread curls through the air. Breakfast is waiting at a small table under the pergola. Crusty bread with cracks, like rivers across its surface, still warm from the oven. A bowl of honey so golden it catches and holds the morning light. Sliced peaches soft as velvet, their scent sweet and sun-warmed. A wedge of pecorino sharp and crumbly beside a small dish of fig jam, There is coffee, of course, thick and dark, served in heavy ceramic cups, its aroma rich enough to stand on its own. We eat slowly, listening to the valley wake. A tractor hums in a distant field. Swallows arc through the sky overhead. A dog barks once, lazily, and is answered by another across the hills. The world feels soft and wide and steady. After breakfast, we set out for Montepulciano, winding our way north along quiet roads that twist and dip through olive groves and low stone walls. Montepulciano rises from the ridge like a fortress of sun-baked stone. Its towers catch the light first, then its tiled roofs, then the narrow curling streets that spill downward in gentle spirals. Built by the Etruscans more than 2,000 years ago, the town still holds its ancient shape. A place of defence and worship, of wine and trade, of pride etched into every stone. We park just outside the walls and pass through one of the ancient gates, the arch worn smooth by time. Inside, the town hums with morning. Shopkeepers sweep their stoops. Market stalls are unfolding in the piazzas, filled with herbs, pottery, and dusty bottles of red wine. The scent of fresh bread and cured meats drifts from the open doors of bakeries and butcher shops, mingling with the sharp herbal smell of crushed thyme underfoot. We wander upward toward the Piazza Grande, the highest and oldest part of town. Here the buildings lean close, their facades aged to soft pink and amber. The Palazzo Comunale, Montepulciano's town hall, towers above the square with its crenellated roof and tall clock tower, a structure so evocative it served as a stand-in for Florence in a film adaptation of Twilight, though the truth of the place is far older and richer than anything on screen. Beneath the square, a secret world waits. We step into the cool arched cellar of Cantina Contucci, one of the oldest wine cellars in Montepulciano. The stone steps lead down into shadow, where oak barrels line the walls like sleeping beasts, and the air smells of earth, wood, and thyme. A man in a blue apron greets us with a quiet smile and leads us through the maze of barrels and stone columns. He speaks softly, reverently, explaining that the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, aged here, was once known as the king of all wines. A ruby red wine made from Sangiovese grapes, grown in the sun-soaked clay soils of the hills outside town. We taste it in small, delicate glasses. The first sip is warm and alive, with notes of cherry, leather, and the deep, dark smell of the cellar itself. It tastes like old secrets, like soil and fire, and forgotten prayers. We linger a while longer, letting the quiet wrap around us. When we step back into the sunlight, the day has deepened into a warm, golden glow. We find lunch on a small terrace tucked behind a vine-draped alley. There are only 3 tables, and the view stretches out for miles. Across rows of vines, across olive groves, across the rolling countryside so perfect it doesn't seem real. Lunch is simple and perfect, slices of bruschetta, brushed with olive oil and garlic, sun-dried tomatoes glistening like rubies, curls of prosciutto so thin they melt on the tongue, a crisp white wine that tastes of apples and distant wind. The breeze rises and stirs the leaves, a dog naps in the doorway. A man in a straw hat sings softly to himself as he carries crates of lemons to the back of the kitchen. The world is slow and kind and full. In the heat of the early afternoon, we drive south again, away from the hilltops, toward a place older still. The road narrows and dips, curling through olive trees and ancient stone walls, until we reach Bagno Vignoni, a tiny spa village where water has been rising from the ground for more than 2,000 years. The Romans came here to bathe. St. Catherine of Siena came to pray. Pilgrims stopped here on their way to Rome, weary and aching, drawn by the steam that still curls from the heart of the town. At the centre of Bagno Vignoni is its most remarkable feature. Not a square or a church, but a vast steaming thermal pool built of stone, fed by hot springs that bubble up from the earth below. We sit at the edge of the piazza, watching the steam rise and drift like ghosts in the sunlight. Around the pool, the houses and inns lean in quietly, their shutters half closed against the heat. We dip our feet into the shallow channels that carry the spring water away, narrow troughs carved into the stone where the water runs hot and fast over smooth, pale limestone. The warmth seeps into our bones, and the silence folds around us. Everything smells of minerals and stone, of warm earth and clean water. After a while, we follow a path down the hill where a small natural pool hides beneath a curtain of fig trees. The water here is cooler, green with algae and shadow. We sit on the rocks watching dragonflies flit across the surface, their wings catching the light like spun glass. Time drips like honey. The sun begins to tilt toward evening. We climb back up the hill, our legs heavy, our hearts light, and return to the agriturismo just as the sky begins to blush. Evening falls like a soft breath. We change clothes slowly, shaking the dust from our sleeves, and step out into the warm hush of twilight. The air smells of rosemary and wood smoke, of lavender and grilled meat. Dinner tonight is served under the olive trees, and the table is long and rough, scattered with candles that flicker in the gathering dark. The stars begin to appear, one by one, shy at first, then braver. We sit among friends, some strangers, some familiar, all joined by the food and the wine and the night. Dinner begins with ribollita, a hearty soup of bread, beans and dark leafy greens, ladled steaming into wide bowls. It's a dish born of Tuscan necessity, of farmers and seasons, reheated over and over until it becomes something more than the sum of its parts. Next comes tagliatelle with truffles, the pasta wide and tender, the truffles shaved so thin they almost disappear before touching the tongue. The taste is earth and forest, old and rich, a whisper more than a shout. There is lamb roasted with rosemary and garlic, charred at the edges, pink in the centre. There are roasted potatoes, their skins crisp and golden. There is wine, deep dark Brunello poured generously, the glasses refilled before we even notice they've emptied. There is laughter, clinking forks, soft music drifting from a nearby window. The night wraps around us like a warm shawl. Dessert is simple, a slice of fig tart, the fruit soft and dark, the crust sweet and crumbling, and a small glass of vin santo, the holy wine, sweet, amber, warming the chest like a final kiss. When the candles burn low and the cicadas grow louder, we walk slowly back to our room. The olive trees sway gently in the breeze, and the stars are so close they seem to hang just above our heads. The fields whisper with the soft breath of summer, and the hills of Tuscany fold themselves around us once more, old and eternal, golden and alive. Morning breaks softer than before. There is a stillness to the air that carries the weight of departure, not in sorrow, but in reverence. The hills beyond the window lie quiet beneath a sky brushed with pale gold. The olive trees stretch slowly in the breeze, their silver leaves whispering stories we've only just begun to understand. We dress in silence, not out of hurry, but with the care of people wrapping the last gift of a beautiful stay. The room feels lived in now, familiar, the corners known, the scent of lavender from last night's breeze still caught in the linen. Outside the day is already warming, birdsong threads through the branches, the bees have begun their hum, and the smell of wood smoke and fresh bread rides on the air like a blessing. We take breakfast beneath the same fig tree, the table set with gentle simplicity, slices of bread still warm from the oven, pressed with the lines of the baker's hands, small bowls of green gold olive oil, poured thick and grassy, a dish of fresh ricotta dusted with lemon zest and honey, and peaches cut into slow, dripping slices. Coffee arrives strong and silent, thick with the smell of roasted almonds and the morning fire. We eat slowly, savouring the hush. Our host lingers with us a moment, pointing toward the distant ridge and tracing with her finger the line of an ancient road that once carried pilgrims from Canterbury to Rome. The Via Francigena, she tells us, one of Europe's oldest pilgrimage routes. Today we'll walk a piece of it. We set out late in the morning, the sun already beginning to press gently against our backs. The path begins behind a stone chapel, just outside the farm. The small building leans slightly, its bell long silent, but its doorway draped with wild rosemary and thyme. A single candle flickers inside beside a chipped statue of St. Francis, his arms open in welcome. The road is made of earth and gravel, sometimes stone, winding softly through fields and groves. Cypress trees line its edges like sentinels, tall, still, dark against the rising light. The Via Francigena dates back to at least the 9th century. It was a road of faith and fatigue, carved by the feet of thousands who walked from northern Europe to Rome, some for salvation, some for penance, some for the hope of something more than what they'd left behind. Even now the path feels sacred. There are no cars here, no fences, just the rhythm of footsteps, the rasp of wind through wheat stalks, the scent of crushed wildflowers underfoot. We walk without speaking for long stretches. A butterfly dances ahead of us for nearly half a mile. At one bend in the road, a crumbling stone wall runs along the edge of an olive grove. Carved into the wall is a date, 1421. Faded, almost invisible, but still here. Everything in Tuscany seems to carry the echo of hands long vanished. By midday, the heat thickens, and the road leads us gently toward the village of San Quirico d'Orcia. It rises suddenly from the dust, a knot of stone and shadow, its walls almost golden in the high light. San Quirico is quiet. Far less visited than Pienza or Montepulciano, it feels untouched, content in its own rhythm. The streets are narrow, shaded, lined with iron lanterns and pots of flowering basil that spill their scent onto the warm stones. We pass through the old gate, the Porta Cappuccini, and into the heart of the town. A woman in a blue apron sweeps her doorway. A cat stretches along a sunlit windowsill. A church bell chimes somewhere close. At the centre of the village is the Collegiata Church, its Romanesque facade carved with lions and saints, the stone worn smooth by centuries of rain and devotion. We step inside and find coolness, silence, the kind of hush that settles into the bones. Candles flicker along the nave. The altar is simple, beautiful, dressed in white linen and sprigs of lavender. We sit for a moment in the back pew, breathing in the cool incense-soaked air. Outside again, we wander through the Horti Leonini, a 16th century garden tucked within the walls. The hedges are clipped into perfect squares, the paths lined with gravel that crunches softly underfoot. In the centre, a statue of Cosimo I de' Medici stands tall and quiet, watching over the olive trees and the open sky. It feels like a place made for thinking, for resting, for letting things settle. We sit on a low wall and watch the wind move through the trees. Time slips its leash again. Lunch is simple and quiet. A trattoria with only 3 tables set out beneath a vine-draped pergola offers a menu scrawled in fading ink on a wooden board. We order grilled vegetables, drizzled in oil and lemon, a plate of sheep's milk cheese with acacia honey, and a basket of warm bread baked that morning. There is wine, of course, a glass of young Chianti, light and crisp and earthy. The food tastes of the hills around us, of sun and hands and soil. It tastes like the end of something beautiful. After lunch, we return to the road, walking slowly back toward the farm. The sun begins to slide lower in the sky, the light turning richer, more golden, the shadows longer. We take a short detour up a gravel track toward a place we've seen from afar again and again, the tiny, perfect Cappella della Madonna di Vitelletta. It sits alone among the wheat fields, flanked by 2 cypress trees, its simple stone walls glowing in the late light. The chapel has stood here for centuries, a place of stillness in a world that has turned and turned and turned. We sit in the grass nearby, watching the wind ripple through the fields like waves on a sunlit sea. Birdsong echoes through the air, insects hum. The chapel door is closed, but its presence is enough, a quiet heart at the centre of the hills. We sit until the sun sinks low behind the distant mountains and the sky turns soft with the first hush of twilight. Back at the Agriturismo, the final night begins. The tables are set again beneath the olive trees, but tonight there's a hush in the laughter, a warmth in the glances exchanged. We know we are leaving, and Tuscany, in its own quiet way, seems to know too. Dinner begins with a dish of tagliatelle, wide ribbons of fresh pasta tossed with porcini mushrooms and garlic. The mushrooms are earthy, rich, tasting of the forest floor and the stone caves where they grew. Then comes coniglio alla cacciatora, rabbit stewed with tomatoes, olives and rosemary, tender and bright, the sauce thick with memory. There is roasted fennel, a salad of wild greens with lemon and oil, and wine, always wine, poured slowly, shared easily, tasting of clay and sun. The stars come early tonight, sharp and clear. Dessert is a square of chestnut cake with a dollop of mascarpone, light and cool, and sweetened with a hint of orange zest. The meal ends slowly. There is a toast quietly given. There is silence held longer than usual. There is the sense that something real has passed through us these past days, something older and softer than memory. We take one final walk before bed. The fields lie dark now, silvered by starlight. The cypress trees sway gently. Somewhere far off, a fox barks once and is answered by nothing. The chapel is just a shadow on the hill, but we feel it there, holding its place. We stop in the middle of the path and look up. The stars are endless, the hills are still. And Tuscany, this place of gold and wind and stone, holds us one last time in the soft cradle of its silence. We hope you enjoyed this journey. Please follow us for more destinations, and don't forget to leave a review. It helps others find a peaceful place to drift off to. We'd also like to remind you that information in this episode may become outdated. Please verify with your own research if you plan on traveling to any of these lovely destinations. Until next time.